Opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, at this time, I'd like to accept nominations for board president.
I nominate Dave Panzella.
Motion and second.
All in favor?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. Next, we'll have nominations for vice president.
I'd like to nominate Marcy Sangston.
A motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Next, we'll have requests for approval to appoint Cherie Routson as treasurer. Motion and second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next, request to approval to appoint Jennifer Helms as assistant treasurer. Motion and second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Move that Bob Renzi and Cecilia Driscoll be appointed to the Council City Recreation Board for 1-year term. A motion and second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. And thank you guys for that. Really appreciate that. That's a big thing to you guys to take your time and have us represented for the recreation. Thank you. Next, we'll have request approval to appoint Cherie Routson to represent the Collinsville Area School District at the annual meeting of the Southwest Regional Tax Bureau in accordance with the Southwest Regional Tax Bureau bylaws. A motion is second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next, request approval to appoint Jennifer Helms to be the alternate representative of the Collinsville Area School District at the annual meeting of the Southwest Regional Tax Bureau in accordance with the Southwest Regional Tax Bureau bylaws. Motion is second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next, request approval of a solicitor for the Collinsville Area School District be appointed as follows. Appoint Watson and Mundorf, LLP, as solicitor for the school district for matters commencing after December 4th, 2024, and terminate at the school board organization meeting December 2025 as proposed. I have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next, request approval to conduct the monthly non-voting public committee meeting of the Board of School Directors of the Collinsville Area School District on the following Monday of each month at 7 p.m. prevailing time in the Senior High School Auditorium, and conduct the public voting meeting at 7 p.m. prevailing time as scheduled. Motion is second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Motion to adjourn. We'll go into executive session. We'll be back out for a regular meeting. Thank you. Roll call, please.
Hogenauer. Detweiler.
Here.
Here. You stand for a moment of silence and a pledge, please. Motion for the minutes of the previous meeting. Motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Motion for treasurer's report. Motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Motion for the payment of the general federal fund and CACTC bills. Motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Motion for payment of the cafeteria fund bills. Motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. If nothing under agenda items, moving to athletics. Mrs. Sangston.
Thank you, Mr. Panzella. Request approval to solicit bids for spring sports supplies and equipment, and I so move.
Motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Request approval to hire Brad Davis, winter game manager for the 24-25 school year, and I so move.
Motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Request approval of Sean Watsky, volunteer wrestling coach, and I so move.
Motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Oh, I have Mr. Renzi. Mr. Martucci. Mr. Evans. That's all we have, Mr. Panzella. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Sangston. Moving to buildings and grounds, Mr. Detweiler.
Thank you, Mr. Panzella. I'd like to request approval of the following event and building usage request and spread items 1 and 2, and I so move.
Motion and second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Request the conditional approval contingent upon successful submission of screening and background checks of the following additions to the maintenance substitute list for the 2024-2025 school year. Dave May, and I so move.
Motion and second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Request approval to hire Sharon Nicholson as a 4-hour custodian effective January 6, 2025, contingent upon her resignation as a cafeteria employee on January 3rd, 2025, and I so move.
Motion and second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Request the conditional approval contingent upon successful submission of screening and background checks of the following additions to the custodial substitute list for the 2024-2025 school year. Charlie Martin, and I so move.
Motion and second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Request approval of the 3-year customer service agreement between the Connellsville Area School District and Republic Services for waste disposal effective January 2025 through January 2028 at a monthly cost $3,072.69 for the first year, no increase for the first year, and an 8% increase for each consecutive year for Bullskin Township, Dunbar Township Elementary, West Crawford, and Springfield Clifford M. Pritz Elementary as proposed, and I so move.
Motion and second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Request approval to replace fencing at the Connellsville Stadium by All Around Fence Company at a cost of $27,500 to be paid for by the PCCD grant, and I so move.
Motion and second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Mrs. Sangston, anything additional? Mr. Bigham? That's all we have, Mr. Panzella. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Detweiler. Moving to the Carnegie Free Library, Mrs. Driscoll.
We have nothing under this category. Mr. Martre? That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Driscoll. Moving to the Connellsville Area Career and Technical Center, Mr. Detweiler.
Mr. Panzella, we have nothing at the current time. Mrs. Sankston, anything? I don't believe Mr. McWilliams is here. That's all we have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Detweiler. Moving to curriculum, Mr. Martucci.
Thank you, Mr. Panzella. We have nothing at this time. Mr. Detweiler, you have anything to add? Lorenzi? Dr. Coons? Thank you. That's all we have, Mr. Panzella.
Thank you, Mr. Martucci. Moving to cyber, Mr. Martre.
Thank you, Mr. Panzella. We have nothing this evening. Mrs. Driscoll, have anything additional? Mr. Ghost? That's all we have.
Thank you, Mr. Martre. Moving to federal programs, Mr. Renzi.
Anything, Mr. Martucci? And Dr. Coons? We have nothing at all. Thank you, Mr. Panzella.
Thank you, Mr. Renzi. Sticking with you with finance, please.
Request approval of the attached requisition orders and to authorize the district business office to process orders and payments, and I so move.
Motion is second. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Request approval of the accelerated budget opt-out resolution certifying tax rate without inflation index and no need to comply with the Act 1 accelerated budget procedures for the 2025-2026 school year as proposed, and I so move.
The motion is second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Request approval of the resolution establishing tax collector compensation for collection of real estate as proposed, and I so move.
Motion is second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, Mr. Detweiler and Mrs. Routson. Nothing? That's all we have, Ms. Panzella.
Thank you again, Mr. Renzi. Moving to food service, Mrs. Sankston.
Thank you, Mr. Panzella. Request approval to hire Melissa Larry as a 4-hour cafeteria employee effective December 5th, 2025, and I so move.
Motion is second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Request a conditional approval contingent upon successful submission of screening and background checks to the cafeteria substitute list for the 24-25 school year, Sandra Minnick, and I so move.
Motion is second. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
That's all I had, Mr. Martre. Mr. Trofanoff. You have nothing? Eh, that's all we have.
January.
That's all we have. No wonder it's going to snow out there.
Thank you, Mrs. Sankston. Moving to personnel review and liaison, Mr. Renzi.
Thank you, Ms. Panzella. Request a conditional approval contingent upon successful submission of screening and background checks of the following additions to the professional substitute list for the 2024-2025 school year, Thomas Exton, and I so move.
Motion is second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Request a conditional approval contingent upon successful submission of screening and background checks of the following additions to the support personnel substitute list for the 2024-2025 school year, Sandra Minnick and Grace Rugg, and I so move.
Motion is second. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
The following Family and Medical Leave Act leaves are confirmed by the board. Ann Davin, teacher, effective November 13th, 2024, intermittently for the remainder of the 2024-2025 school year, and I so move.
Motion is second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Request approval to accept the resignation of Sonia Bentley, support personnel, effective December 13th, 2024, and I so move.
A motion is second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Request approval to accept the resignation of Sharon Nicholson, cafeteria worker, effective January 3rd, 2025, and I so move.
A motion is second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Request approval to accept the resignation of Tammy Weedson, cafeteria, effective November 25th, 2024, and I so move.
Motion is second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Request approval to accept retirement of Kathy Anthony Cafeteria effective January 3rd, 2025, and I so move.
Motion is second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Request approval to accept the retirement of Richard Stroyer, custodian, effective January 8th, 2025, and I so move.
Motion is second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Anything to add, Mr. Detweiler? How about it, Mr. Martucci? And Mrs. Kokenar? Nothing? Mr. Evans? That's all we have, Mr. Panzella. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Renzi. Moving to policy and legislative, Mr. Martre.
Thank you, Mr. Panzella. We only have one item this evening. It's first reading. Request approval of the first reading of the following policy would be 011, Principles in Governance and Leadership. And I so move.
The motion is second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
And I would encourage everyone sitting up here tonight to get a copy from our board secretary and read it over. Mrs. Driscoll, anything additional? Mr. Harshman? I'm sorry, Mr. Evans. Okay, that's all we have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Martre. Moving to safety and security, Mr. Martucci.
Thank you, Mr. Panzella. Request approval for Guardian Protection to update the security system at Bullskin Township Elementary School at a cost of $7,181.54 as proposed, and I so move.
The motion is second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
And that's all I have. Mrs. Driscoll.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Mrs. Sangston. Parlak, giving that. Thank you. That's all we have, Mr. Panzella.
Thank you, Mr. Martucci. Moving to special education, Mrs. Driscoll.
We have nothing at this time. Mr. Martre? Mr. D'Amico?
Thank you, Mrs. Driscoll. Moving to student services, Mrs. Driscoll.
Okay. Travel, in accordance with policy number 121, request approval of the following travel, and I'd like to put all those together 1 through 5, and I so move.
The motion is second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Okay. 22B ESL agreement, request approval for the ESL agreement between Intermediate Unit 1 and the Connellsville Area School District for the 24-25 school year, and I so move.
The motion is second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
And I have nothing else. Mrs. Sangston?
What is the ESL? Okay, thank you, I appreciate it. That's all. I have nothing.
Okay. And Mr. D'Amico, anything else? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Driscoll. Moving to technology, Mr. Detweiler.
Thank you, Mr. Panzella. Request approval to purchase 18 Boxlight interactive displays from Twisted Computing at a cost of $36,126 as a sole source provider, and I so move.
Motion is second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Roll call.
I abstain.
Yes.
I'm going to vote no. I'd like to see us look at some of the other options for that program.
Yes.
Yes.
Failed. There was an abstain.
Good.
Yeah.
can't hear.
Just for the clarification, the vote on that, the motion failed. It was a 4-2-1 vote. Given the amount that involves, that requires the affirmative vote of 5 board members. So that particular motion failed at this.
All right, so I'll move on to the next one. Request approval to change the district's wireless carrier from Verizon Wireless to T-Mobile at a cost of $29.40 per line, with an approximate savings of $9,039 per year, and I so move.
Motion is second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Mr. Martray, anything? Mr. Ghost. Mr. Ghost, you couldn't tell the guy beside you that you did $10,000 in savings. Attaboy. That's all we have, Mr. Panzella. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Detweiler. Moving to transportation, Mr. Martucci.
Thank you, Mr. Panzella. Request approval of updates, additions to the bus van driver list as proposed, and I so move.
Motion is second. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
That's all I have, Mr. Renzi. Mr. Evans. Thank you. That's all we have, Mr. Panzella. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Martucci. Moving to President's report. Request approval to appoint Richard Evans as Superintendent of Schools effective December 4th, 2024 through December 3rd, 2027 as proposed, and to approve the corresponding superintendent contract pending approval of the district solicitor. And I so move.
Second.
Motion is second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. We have nothing for...
Mr. Panzella, I would like to say something.
Yep.
Welcome, Mr. Evans. We do appreciate it. I also would like to wish all our employees and students a very Merry Christmas, since we won't see you till next year, and Happy New Year.
Thank you. We have nothing under non-agenda items. Assistant to the superintendent. Mr. Evans.
Thank you. I'd like to recognize the school board of directors this evening who have each contributed in order to provide Christmas presents to 5 local veterans in need. This initiative was started by the high school JROTC program under the leadership of Colonel Joseph Walsh. In all, this group raised money and goods to provide gift bags for 45 veterans at an approximate cost of $2,250. So thank you to the JROTC program and Colonel Walsh for taking this project on and providing Christmas cheer to local veterans in need. And also thank you to the board and the district for having trust in me to continue help moving our team forward. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Evans.
Thank you, everybody.
Anybody have anything else? Motion to adjourn.